Hey guys, it's Taylor Brown here with String Theory. In this episode, I'll be making this Tigerwood in Blender. So we'll be modeling off of this kind of wood, right here. Okay, so let's get started by deleting the default camera and lamp. Keep the cube. That's scaled on the Z-axis. We're creating a floorboard here, so let's scale on the S and the X-axis, right here. And then let's add an array. An array on the x-axis for 1, and then on the y-axis for the count of 10. Let's apply these arrays like so, and then let's separate all these objects by loose parts. Now they're all separated into several wood boards. Now we want to rotate these on the y-axis individually, but we see that the origin point is all the way over here. So what we'll do is set the origin point to individual objects by clicking on Object, Set Origin, and then Origin to Center of Mass, like so. And now we can transform them on the individual objects' origins. Choose the Y rotation of 1 degree, like so. Now they're all uneven. Nice. Okay, so let's add a plane for the light here. Add an emission. Let's set the string something like 10. Let's use constraint in the constraint tab. Go to damp track and set the target to the object here. Use negative Z axis. That way it's pinned correctly. Drag it around and then it follows the object. And if we move it up, let's scale it up. Let's use the Cycles render engine because that renders faster for the material creation. Let's render this out. Let's use the GPU if you have one. That's faster. Okay. And then let's begin with the actual material here. So let's go to Shader Editor, and with no Wrangler installed, in the add-on section here, no Wrangler, turn it on. We can get started on the creation here. So let's add a mother texture. Let's use the object coordinate after using a texture setup by pressing Ctrl T, and use the object coordinate. And let's set the scale something like 1 for now, or 2. Now we can plug this into a second mother texture to create some rings around those patterns. We can change the scale for the number of iterations of the rings. So let's do something like 50 for now. And that's pretty good. Nice. Okay. I like how this is going. Now we want to have some more gray values here for later on. So between now it's mostly black and white rather than gray. Let's lower the detail here, something like point. Let's do 1 and 1 here as well. And then we can copy this and set the scale here something like 100. And then we will mix these together using a mixed RGB. Set the blend type to dodge. Or actually overlay. This just makes it so that the we get some thicker areas and some thinner areas here. Like so. Okay, so now we need to mix this with some random noise. That way it's not so even looking. So let's add a noise texture. And use the object coordinate after adding a texture setup by pressing Ctrl T. And let's change the X direction something like 0.1. Let's apply the scale here as well. change this scale here, something like 0.1, 1.1 here. That's better, much better. Okay. And then let's copy normal texture and plug this into the vector to distort the vector of the second normal texture. And let's change the scale here on the first one, something like 2. And let's change the distortion here as well. Let's do this, change the scale here to something like 3. Perfect. Okay. Now let's combine these together using a mix RGB. Let's use the factor that way it's black and white, or black, white, and gray, and let's mix these together. Nice. Awesome. Okay. Now we can see that the it's still looking very even. I mean, the we get the more gray values and noise texture showing up in the grain here, but the overall appearance of the rings here is very very even. So we want to change the thickness in certain areas and the thinness in certain areas by using a vector curve. Let's use the y-axis, and let's add 2 points, one right here, then one down here. And now we control the thickness and thinness in certain areas. Perfect. Now we can see that all the floorboards are exactly the same. We can change that by adding two mapping nodes, one right here, then second one right down here. Let's change the y-axis something like 5 meters. Keep this one at 0. Then we'll mix these together using mix RGB. And then we will add an object info node and use this random feature here to control the factor of what's being used, what board. So black will be one and white will be the other, and gray will be everything in between these two values. Like so. Now we see that they're all different, which is great. Now we want to add a little bit more of that darkness here. Like it's bright and then it gets really dark. So what we can do for that is add a mix RGB and then add on top of itself. Set the blend type to burn. Move the slider over. We can control that feature. Now let's colorize it using a mix RGB. And we can change the values here. Something like that's good. Yeah. Sweet. Okay, so now we can see that the it's really just the values in between the these two colors. So we want to add some more variation in this. So what we can do is actually add second burn right here. Add it on top of this first burn mix RGB. Then lower this down to something like 0.1 or 0.01. Now we get a little bit more of that red color coming into the gray areas, which is nice. Okay, it's looking good. Let's plug this into the base color. Let's copy this light here. Demonstration purposes. Let's raise the burn here a little more, something like 102. .05. Now we want to add some grain to this wood here. So what we can do is go all the way over here, and then we will add a noise texture to distort the vector with the texture. And then we will mix this with the coordinate we originally had, which was object. And let's bring this over on the object coordinate side to lower the influence of the noise. Something like that is good. And then let's change the scale here, something like 50. Now we want to stretch this noise texture a little bit on the x-axis. Let's add a mapping node before the vector. And let's change the x-axis scaling something like 0.1. Perfect. Sweet. Okay. We want a little bit of this texture showing up in the actual, not just the vector of the, not just distorting the multiscape here, but actually adding on top of this. So what we can do is add a mix RGB before the burn. Let's plug this factor all the way over here. Like so. Sweet. Let's change this a little bit higher. Okay. And now we can plug this burn into the bump in the height. Plug this into the normal here. Let's lower the strength. And that's how you make Tigerwood in Blender.